welcome to the rest of history. Today we are going to talk about the life and times of Emperor Constans. Flavius Constans, later Flavius Claudius Constans Augustus, was a Roman emperor who reigned over the West from 337 to 350 AD. One of Constantine I, the Great's sons, he ruled jointly, though not peacefully, with his brothers Constantine II and Constantius II. Constans was born around 320 to 323 AD to Constantine I and Fausta, whilst his father was Augustus of the West, and shortly before the final civil war of Constantine's reign, where, over the course of 324 AD, Licinius, the pagan Augustus of the East, was defeated and Constantine I became sole emperor of Rome. Constans was the youngest of Constantine I's sons, being preceded by his half-brother Crispus, born around 295 to 305 AD, and his brothers Constantine II, born 316, and Constantius II, born 317. Crispus, already an adult at the time of his half-brothers' births, was already Caesar and commander of Gaul when Constans was born, and seemed likely to succeed his father as Augustus. However, in 326 he was suddenly executed, and then shortly after so was Constantine I's wife and Constans's mother, Fausta, leading to rumours that Fausta had tried to seduce Crispus, and when spurned, tricked Constantine into ordering his son's death, only to meet her own fate when the truth was later uncovered. Constans was made Caesar in 333 AD, aged around 10, joining his brothers who already held that rank. Constantine arranged for Constans to marry Olympias, daughter of an important Roman senator named Flavius Ablabius, and although they never married as a result of a late squabble between her father and Constantius II, resulting in Ablabius's execution, Constans took care of Olympias and they lived together in Constantinople. After Constans's death, Olympias would go on to marry Araskes II of Armenia at the behest of Constantius II. In 337, Constantine I died, and the empire was divided amongst his Caesars, Constantine II taking the west, Constans the centre, Italy and Africa, Dalmatius, cousin to the others, taking Greece, and Constantius II the east. The three sons of Constantine I then initiated a purge in cooperation with the army, killing nearly everyone with a claim to the throne, including Dalmatius, and the brothers were proclaimed Augusti by the army. The brothers then met in Sirmium, in modern-day Serbia, to formalize their division of the Roman Empire. Shortly after becoming Augustus, Constans's lands were invaded by the Sarmatians, an Iranian people inhabiting the Eurasian steppe, but Constans managed to win a resounding victory against them. The brothers then got on with arguing amongst themselves over the lands of the Roman Empire. Constans was unhappy with the division, and the brothers met at Viminacium in modern Serbia to discuss the boundaries of their territories. Constans received the prefecture of Illyricum, Greece and the Western Balkans, and the diocese of Thrace, the land now around the southwestern coast of the Black Sea, territory that had originally been bequeathed to his now executed cousin Dalmatius. Constans and his eldest brother and guardian, Constantine II, then fell into dispute. Constantine felt he should be the primary Augustus owing to his position as eldest surviving son of Constantine I. He demanded Constans relinquish to him the African provinces, which Constans did. However, the argument continued as to which parts of North Africa belonged to Constantine's province of Carthage and which belonged to Constans's province of Italy, which was not clear, and the two jockeyed for the best lands. Constantine also refused to give up his guardianship of Constans, despite the younger brother now having come of age. In 340 AD, Constantine II invaded his brother's territory of Italy. Hearing this, Constans, who was in Dacia, roughly modern Romania, dispatched his elite Illyrian troops with the intention to follow them later with the remainder of his forces. Constantine II was then caught in an ambush at Aquileia, a Roman city in northeastern Italy, and killed. Following the elder brother's death, Constans inherited his territories of Hispania, Britannia and Gaul, and so expanded his rule considerably, reigning over the whole Western Roman Empire. Constans followed this up in 341 with a campaign against the Franks, a Germanic people, with his forces victorious in 342. In 343 Constans visited Britain, possibly in order to assist in the repelling of an incursion of Scots or Picts, and thus became the last legitimate emperor to visit the island. In that year he also called the Council of Serdika with his brother Constantius II in order to settle a religious dispute. Constans was a Christian who adhered to the Nicene Creed of 325, the result of the First Council of Nicaea, which laid the foundation for what would become mainstream Christianity, settling questions relating to the relationship of God the Son and God the Father, and of the date of Easter. In 341 he had issued an edict banning pagan sacrifice, and he also worked to suppress the Donatists in North Africa. The Donatists were a breakaway group of Christians from the Church of Carthage, who argued that the church must be a church of saints, not a church of sinners, and thus rejected the validity of those Christians who had previously made token repudiations of their faith, which was asked for by the lenient North African governor during the period of Christian persecutions. The intended purpose of the Council of Serdika was to resolve the Arian controversy, which was another schism between Christian groups. The Trinitarians, or Homoousians, meaning of one essence, and those professing Arianism. Arius was a Christian preacher from Alexandria, and he and his Arian followers primarily disagreed with the Trinitarians over the relationship of God the Father to God the Son. Arius asserted that as God the Father begat God the Son came after the Father. For Arius, the Son was God's first creation, through which everything else was later created. This was very different from the Trinitarians, who held that God the Father and God the Son were co-eternal and co-substantial, of one essence. The Nicene Creed, formulated in 325 and agreed upon by the majority of bishops and backed by Constantine I, included the term homoousios, one essence, and so came down against the Arians, with Arius being exiled to Illyricum. Despite this, Arianism remained a popular belief that divided the Roman world and also spread to many of the Germanic tribes. Constans's brother Constantius II was himself an Arian, or at least a semi-Arian for political reasons. Unfortunately, the Council of Serdika was a complete failure. The Western and Eastern bishops were largely split on Trinitarian-Arian grounds respectively, and three bishops present, Athanasius, an ardent opponent of Arius and supported by Constans, Marcellus, and Esclapas, had been excommunicated by the Eastern synods. This caused the Eastern predominantly Arian or semi-Arian bishops to refuse to hold council with the Western bishops. Many of the Arian bishops then left to hold their own councillor of Philippopolis. This left the Council of Serdika to be dominated by Western Homoousian bishops, who declared the three previously mentioned excommunicated bishops to be innocent and decided that nothing needed to be added to the Nicene Creed. Thus, because the two factions had not actually talked to each other, no useful resolution to the schism was achieved. Such issues may seem trivial to us today, but at the time these articles of faith bitterly divided people, with Constans and his Homoousian West and Constantius and his Arian and semi-Arian East on the point of open warfare by 346, only averted by the non-conclusive compromise of allowing each emperor to back his favourite theology within his half of the empire. Despite his Christianity, his evident interest and involvement in matters of Christian theology, and even his joint decree with his brother banning homosexual marriage, which was not legal beforehand but seems to have been occasionally practiced, Constans had a reputation as a homosexual, with rumours of his scandalous behaviour with handsome barbarian captives being committed to writing. The Roman attitude to homosexuality is not easily directly translated into our modern sensibilities. Similar to the ancient Greeks, it was originally thought perfectly normal for a man to desire a handsome youth. Roman attitudes were more concerned with who was active and who was passive, with the active party being considered manly and normal, whilst the receiver was thought to be unmanly and subject of ridicule. By Constans's day, though, the attitude had shifted more towards what we would recognise as a general modern homophobia. A great deal of this was as a result of the Christianization of the empire, with harsh punishments being prescribed for same-sex coupling. Though the turn away from the acceptance of homosexuality had in fact started earlier, Philip I had banned male prostitution in the early 3rd century, and a series of laws were passed during the 3rd century crisis regulating male-male sex. Constans gradually lost the support of the army, developing a reputation for cruelty, misrule and favouritism. In 350, when Constans was only about 27 years old, a general named Magnentius was proclaimed Augustus by the troops on the Rhine frontier, and the legions throughout the western provinces followed suit. Constans realised he had lost support of all but those closest to him and attempted to flee to Hispania. At the fortification of Helena, now Elne in southern France, he was cornered by supporters of the usurper and killed while seeking sanctuary in the temple. So died the youngest of Constantine the Great's sons. Magnentius didn't last long, however. Constantius II temporarily put off his wars against Persia, in which he'd been engaged since 337, and marched his army west, plunging the Roman Empire into yet another civil war. In 351, the forces of the usurper met those of Constantius at the Battle of Mursa Major in modern-day Croatia, where they were roundly defeated. Magnatius pulled back, news of his loss costing him allies who gave their support over to Constantius II. After another defeat in 353 at the Battle of Mons Seleucus, southern France, Magnatius committed suicide. This left Constantius II, only surviving son of Constantine I, as sole emperor of the Roman world. After his death, writing on Constans was mixed. Whilst he had military successes, he was also thought overbearing and indulgent, allowing his favourites to oppress the people and selling offices for cash. He attempted to unify the Christian church, backing what would become the mainstream faction of the Trinitarians, yet he also garnered a reputation for homosexuality. Like his brother Constantine II, Constans is often overshadowed by his surviving brother Constantius II, who would go on to rule Rome as sole emperor for 11 years after Constans' death. However, as we have seen, despite paucity of source material, Constans was an important and interesting figure in the history of the Roman Empire. Thank you very much for listening.